Well, this is fucking weird. I'm back on the mic. Welcome back to the Barcode Collective podcast. It has been several months since we have jumped on here. Finally getting a little bit, I guess, of normalcy back in order to get back to the mission, get back to sharing all that we have to share with our different projects. And we're going to put a little we're going to date this, we're going to timestamp this. We are right in the middle of COVID-19, hopefully coming out of it. And we are now on video, my friends. So just to play it safe, we are 6 feet. We're safe, hence why we don't have any masks. Trying to be responsible during this crisis, but not letting it get in the way of us producing. So if you guys don't recognize the voice, this is Jacob Saldana, co-founder of the Fit Bar Superfood Cafe and Space Bar Wellness. I'm with the one name man, Nuncio, over here.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming by, man. It's great to start seeing some of these faces.
Yes.
So much of our interactions for the past couple of months have been strictly on social media. So I've been seeing you, my friend, seeing you staying active.
Thank you.
Whether or not it was a pivot or whether or not it was the game plan from the get-go, I just want to talk about kind of what you got going on. You know, we'll talk about what we got going on, and let's talk about if we can get something going on together.
Yeah, I think let's do this dance.
So if you let's do the tango. So if you don't mind, my friend, why don't you just give the people a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, and we'll start from there, my friend.
Sure. Well, my name is Alan Nuncio, but I go by Nuncio, as you know. I am in the video world. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm working with podcasters. That's, like yourself. And it's been a new venture of ours and venture of mine. I own the company called Vision X Podcast, and what we do is we bring accessible graphics and branding and automation and a resource for podcasters to enter the video world where we're at right now. Expanding the reach, not just ears but eyes. Yeah, and I know that's super important. Like, why do you feel like that's so important? Not only for the time that we're in right now, but just like. Definitely. I think it's a learning thing. I grew up as, I'm a self-taught person. I did not go to school to learn my profession. All of it was self-taught. Little small room and little desk in the corner, humble beginnings. But I think we're missing as a society, as in podcasting, it's missing that other half of visual learners, where a lot of people are either hands-on audio or visual learners, and I want to be able to provide that opportunity to capture the viewer, right? The one that learns from video. And I think the great thing about podcasting, it has an 80% consumption rate, through audio, and pairing that with this nice studio setup we have here, it really draws the person in. I think that's what we're offering to podcasters. Yeah, and I think originally when I first started recording the Barcode Collective podcast, I had so much reservation and I felt so awkward on the microphone. You know what I mean? Just because sometimes you get self-conscious about your voice or whatever it might be, and I feel like I do pretty well on camera. So it's like being able to look at a camera and talk to it and interact with somebody. I think is going to allow a lot of other people to kind of get into maybe the podcast space or enter into it when maybe they have some reservations otherwise. Definitely. Because they can show a little bit of the facial expressions and people can understand a little better, like you said, because of the visual opportunity to learn. Pairing that face, that voice to that face, and showing the handsome mug. There's studies out there that show. We're talking about. Shit. We could almost segue that right into privilege, but that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. But what? Man, fuck it. Let's talk about it, bro. We got so much going on in this world. It's the elephant in the room.
It is, man. And so we're in the middle of protests in cities. People. Demonstrating, a lot of sometimes turning into violence. And I watched your Instagram story today, you sharing some words about what that means to you. If you don't mind, maybe kind of sharing your story again about growing up, spending some time in Iowa, and like what that what life was like for you.
Definitely. I think I didn't understand it back then. I did not understand color and you know, even you know, we're light skinned guys, you know, and Latinos growing up, you're so innocent. You don't understand what is around you. Why are they treating me this way? Why you know, how come I'm not like everybody else in the room? You know, how come I'm the one singled out? And I think, you know, it's not as much as forward as being black, but it's definitely that sense of, hey, like there's the tension in the room that you feel of, I'm not like the same. I'm not the same, and I feel like I'm being treated as such that
Yeah.
I am not the same.
Yeah.
And so when I was living in Iowa, you know, hence, you know, I did not understand first, you know, and people would kind of point that out, and I'd kind of be like, I kind of accepted it, and that's the nature of racism. Is there's a part of, you know, acceptance, especially being the minority, the very minority, being only, I think, only 3 at the time Mexicans in my school of a predominantly white town. Yeah, I think that you don't notice it until you know, it's exposed when you get older and you start seeing, you know, that and such. And you know, and being on my end of, you know, being Latino and not being black, I can't even imagine,
Right.
you know, having, you know, and there was the one black kid in the school, you know, and I can see the difference, and we all as a minority did stick together. And yeah, man, it's just can I swear in here?
Of course.
It's a shitty fucking feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and, you know, I think neither of us will ever say that we know how it feels.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit of additional empathy that I think we can have somewhat of an understanding, you know, obviously not to scale. But yeah, no, man, pretty similar, you know, for me growing up, I'm half Mexican, half white. And, you know, when we're talking about privilege, we all have privilege. It doesn't, you know, and it's just to a level of extent. And it's not until we start recognizing our privileges that we can start understanding kind of what this whole conversation is about, you know? So, you know, I had the fortune, you know, again, I'm light skinned as well. And like when I grew up, you know, the crowd that I ran with was all Latino, you know? And it's like, I was immersed in that culture, you know, me being away from my family for the past 10 years, you know, I feel like I've lost a lot of that, but, and with that, I have kind of, my look has changed or whatever it is. Point being, when I was younger, when I was in high school, you know, had the big shaved head, you know, you know, is, I looked a lot more Hispanic, and Chicano, you know, than I might be portrayed now. And I guess that's what privilege is. You know, I had the option to grow my hair out, come through with this sick ass mullet. You know what I mean? And it's privilege to me to change that and being able to literally see how I'm treated differently based off of that, me changing my outfit, putting some tighter pants on or whatever it is, and being treated differently. So many other people, you know, blacks in particular right now, they don't, that's not an option, right?
They
and
can't
it's like,
escape their
this
skin.
is small scale. And like, this is ultimately what so many people are missing in this conversation. And that's why I think it needs to start with an acknowledgement of privilege. And it's not until you can do some self-reflection and really identify, because I mean, I guess, you know, we're talking about privilege as if it's like, that's the problem. Like, we're humans, it's human nature. There's always been groups of people that are more privileged, right? So it's like identifying what areas of your life that you're privileged and acknowledging that. You know what I mean? Like, do not hide that it exists. I mean, one great book that I read, because I think one of the things that people latch onto or they hang onto is that they made it. You know, that even if you are, you know, first generation, you know, to the country, that they had some success, they look back at it and they are thinking that they did that themselves. There was no outside influence. They had what it took and they got it done. When I recently read Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, which talks about success largely and all the luck and all the things that go into people's successes, you know, highlighting like Bill Gates' story. And yeah,
Right.
granted, he's very talented. He did a lot of hard work and to get to where he was, but the
There's that
things
level.
that fell into place for him to be at one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer that he just happened to have 24/7 access to, all of these things played into his success.
Definitely.
And you know, it just goes to show that there's so much that goes into it. And it's not until you start asking questions and trying to reflect on your story individually that you can try to understand and empathize. You know, and, you know, I'm super down. Like, my point is not to try to convince everybody to think like I think, or at least have the same outcome. But what I do really want is people to understand the mental model that's necessary to have understanding. And it starts with exposing the shit about yourself, man. Like, so, I mean, as simple as like just thinking one time in your life of when you were shown privilege or favoritism is a great starting point. And then tying that to somebody outside where you can be like, oh shit, if so-and-so, or if this person of color was in the same situation, it probably could have escalated or could have ended up differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I am blessed to actually have experienced what it looked like when I looked a little more thugged out and I was at a party with majority of white people, me being half white and not very much darker, but my choice to look the way that I looked, why a cop rolls up and chooses me out of the crowd to put on the hood and pat down when I didn't, you know, like those, being able to experience that, I have real world understanding of how those things can change, you know what I mean?
Definitely,
and it's like, again, it's just, yeah, it's crazy, man. And I don't know what the solution is. And I don't think,
unfortunately, that's the big issue is finding the solution. And I think, you know, as we're seeing right now with everything kind of unfold before us, you know, there really isn't one solution. I mean, there is in a sense of like Black people, African Americans have tried, I mean, Latinos included, have tried multiple different outlets to express their oppression, music, art, you know, kneeling and in all these different ways, and yet it has to come to this, to the destruction.
I mean that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. You know, so like right now, some of these protests are turning violent, whether it's different groups or whatever. But I mean, just the simple, peaceful as fuck, getting on your knee, right?
Yeah.
How did that end?
Right.
You know what I mean? Now it's
And
like,
why
you're
should
shitting
that?
on my flag, or, you know, or whatever
Yeah.
it was. Like now, because a lot of people are saying, oh, you need to protest peacefully. For, you know, it's hard to tell people how to protest, but you need to protest peacefully. There's pretty strong examples of people trying to protest freely or peacefully, and there's a lot of issues with that. You know what I mean? Like,
Definitely.
I didn't even think about that shit, man. But that's it right there. Like, you can't win. You can't win, right?
However way you spin it, hate is always going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess that's the thing is like, why? That's what I want people to understand is when they see something, whatever outlet of news and media you're watching, you need to pay attention to how you're responding, right? Understand your biases. Which ones are confirmation biases? Why are you keep going to see those same media outlets? When something gets portrayed on the other side of it, why are you trying to justify that's not the case, or whatever it might be? Or why are you need to understand how human nature works and do a little work on like, you know, and we're all victim of this. I'm not operating at some higher level than anybody else, but I am aware of this. And I do notice that where my mind goes when I'm watching some content, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, why am I thinking about that? You know what I mean? It's like, that's where the power of like having a mental model and just like trying to have a system of thinking and actively consuming both sides of the conversation and then coming to your own conclusions.
I think it's because of that privilege too. You know, we go back to the privilege is that, you know, these people that are on the other side that are looking at the riots and looking at the protests and looking at everything as a whole and not understanding it is because these people that are active in protesting, they're in it. They're in that world of like, I have cops following me home at night. I have people looking at me differently. I have, you know, slurs and treated differently, you know, and these other people that have the privilege, they don't understand because they don't feel it.
Yeah.
They don't see it every
Yeah.
day. And now it's gotten to a point where everything has come to a halt. Everything is like the elephant's in the room. It's there. Now what?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, to expand on that a little bit more is like, you know, and people don't understand why violence actually comes into play. Like, yeah, I definitely disagree with burning down small mom and pop businesses that, you know, are probably on, you know, in the struggle with you, you know, like, you know, on your team or whatever it might be. But
that's the hard part is separating that, you know, and not feeling, you know, and that's the issue with escalating at a very high violent rate is it gets out of hand and the message is lost, and that's the downside. But I think hopefully it does kind of calm down and we start acting as we need our leaders, the people, like, you know, we're talking on a platform that can reach out of this room, you know, and I think it just, the conversation needs to happen a bit more so that those violent protesters or whoever else is, you know, the other forces, we can start seeing that die down. The more conversation, the more of like, we hear you, we see you, you know, aspect, the more that we can get our find the solution.
Yeah, not definitely. And like on our Instagram post on the Fit Bars page today or last night, it was about silence just not being an option. And I think the more that we all just voice our experiences in this, because there's for sure close people to me, there's going to be close people to you that have very different views, and maybe we choose not to talk about them a lot. You know, now's the time to talk about it. We don't need to fight about it because we're boys, we're family, but we can talk about it. And is that going to shed light on it? Sure, for sure. You know what I mean? And that's how we can maybe induce a little bit of a change. But I mean,
talking about it, like you said, like when we started, you know, when health and wellness started coming up, you know, and mental health was starting to be more of a prominent thing, you know, to address, you know, talking about it and talking about your issues, your struggles, and things really shed a light. And if you would agree, it started changing things a bit, you know, how we act towards each other and how we, you know, especially here on the West Coast, you know, I can't really speak for the Midwest or the East as much as I'm not there, but the point is that the conversation's happening and things are starting to change. This is another example, right? I think that if we voice our, you know, I didn't, when I made that story, you know, it was a feeling that came out of me. Those some things that I deal with daily, you know, or daily, or even, you know, out of an instant, you know, that the emotions arise of anger or whatever it is. I remember being picked on or mistreated or whatever the feeling arises. It affects in ways that we don't know. You know, how I look at myself, you know, and if you're black, you know, somebody tells you like your skin color, you're too dark or whatever it is, you know, and you start to believe it. You know, and so the less we talk about it, the more of a pain point is going to be, you know, because the first step is admitting it. Right.
Definitely, man. And even admitting our prejudices, right? Like we're fucking lying not only to ourselves but to everybody else if we're not acknowledging that we are all prejudiced 100%. What, you know, at some level of another. And again, back to human nature, that is a survival mechanism. Now largely that prejudice is turns into racism, and it's turned towards race as being largely what people are prejudiced about. But there's prejudices about fucking eating a banana, right? You know what I mean? Like we all have these, you know, based off of our past experiences. Some could have been direct clashes or experiences with another race or whatever it was, or it could be cultural and passed down from generation or just force fed to us via TV or whatever it was, you know, like, and if you're walking down the street and anybody is walking, you know, and this is like another thing as males, we don't necessarily acknowledge, is just how women feel, you know, and like for guys, that should be an easy thing to accept your privilege of being a guy, you know what I mean? That to at least the point in where most men can walk down the street and feel pretty secure, you know what I mean? Like if someone's walking down the sidewalk or you're crossing somebody in an alley, you do not have to feel fully threatened, right? Like
Right,
that,
yeah.
that's privilege, you
I
know?
feel like you're getting looked on.
Right.
The
Exactly. You
wrong
know,
way.
exactly. So it's like wherever it is accessible for you to identify privilege, do that. That's the starting point, I
Yeah.
think.
I think like go back to the talking about it, and really honestly just listening. I think the biggest thing is what happened in my own relationship with my fiance is that when I started listening is when I started changing my privilege, being a man, or be even like, and we can get down to the nuances of like, me being a light skinned Mexican opposed to being a dark skinned Mexican, and how I get treated differently opposed to, darker skinned Mexicans. Even within the Mexican community, what do? He's brown as shit, and we kind of call that out too.
Yeah.
We have internal, racism is another elephant that we don't look at. It really is like it's just time for a change, a time to address those issues and really come down to, and not every way is violent. Not every way has to be violent.
Yeah.
I think that if we listen,
Yeah.
it's really gonna.
Yeah, I mean, and and again, I do understand the need for violence at times too, but it needs to be a tool that you use
Yeah.
strategically, I guess, because I guess a lot of people that are saying violence is never the answer, they probably have something to lose. A lot of people are feeling like they got nothing to lose. I got nothing but violence left. Does that violence need to happen towards, again, a small business? Probably not, but you're going to get some attention with some violence. Don't do it in a reactionary, emotional way. And again, I mean, I'm walking a fine line between condoning it. All I'm saying is that it's not. I can see how that happens. You know what I mean? So
when it's when you reach that point of, right, you're not listening. Now listen.
yeah,
And in history, I think we've seen that multiple times with the, Martin Luther King. And I'm no history, like reading into all the way, but from what I did know is that even that protest wasn't even all the way, peaceful. There were violence, and it ended up in the massacre, assassination of Martin Luther. And I think they're just tired of it. And I think everybody's just tired of it. And like, again, I'm also riding on the fine line of condoning violence. And I'm not about like destroying down our mom and pop shops and destroying our local businesses and destroying where we eat, where we sleep. And I think that's the message, me personally, I would like to get across, is that we don't have to do that.
yeah,
We don't have to go that far. We can reach a cap, and I've been seeing a lot on Instagram, those city cleanups, and people coming together, and that's perfect. That's great. We need that. We need people coming together.
definitely, man. So I mean, the world is definitely changing. Whether it's COVID, the protests right now, it's changing a lot. Not only are our personal lives, but a lot of us, our personal lives are tied up in our businesses. So with all this change, we need to adapt. We need to adapt to either take new viewpoints and to create more understanding. On the business level, we need to adapt and create new services, show up for our customers in a different way. So that's
talk about that. Like, what is it that you think that small businesses are needing to do in this time?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different businesses out there. I mean, I'll speak, I guess, a little bit more in our lane with the health and wellness space. And I guess one of the biggest examples is Space Bar Wellness and kind of the things that we need to do here, as well as the Fit Bar. So, I guess, again, if you guys don't know, so, we own gyms, and we own the Fit Bar Superfood Cafe and Space Bar Wellness. So all health and wellness space. So as soon as COVID hit and the shutdowns hit, we were at a standstill. We pretty much went to zero revenue, like essentially overnight. Luckily, we were able to kind of get the Fit Bar back up and running relatively quickly. But again, no one being outside, revenue is not significant, but part of what we stand for as a company is showing up for our community. And in a time where these fast food businesses that are built on speed, built on convenience are just thriving, we felt we needed to stay open and provide an option, even though people weren't necessarily choosing us at that point in time. But, it's a part of our mission to stay open and figure that out. So with all that, shed light on our limitations, as being a brick and mortar spot, not only the Fit Bar, our gyms, the Space Bar Wellness, we didn't have any kind of systems built in to do any kind of virtual training or online business, So for us, what our initial adaptations were to get the Fit Bar online. So our Seattle shops already had a pretty strong online ordering platform to go off of. Here, we are trying to build out a new one for the California stores and weren't quite there yet. So, it's funny how, we rely on these excuses. Oh, we've got months to do this, whatever, we're working on it. And then boom, when shit hits the fan, you're going to bang that shit out in a fucking 2 hours, right? So it's like, boom, we switched from a platform that we were trying to get out there and work on for probably 3 or 4 months to realizing, okay, that shit ain't working. And then within a couple hours, completely open up a new platform using the Square sites, super easy, and open up the online ordering systems for California. So that was the biggest thing for me, is that knowing that these things are most likely going to continue to happen. Like, what are we going to do to build a business that is less fragile? And we can't take for granted day in and day out customers coming in, because this thing happens and it's out of our control. We need to continue our online ordering and being able to stay alive. So going online based from that standpoint for the Fit Bar, Space Bar, very similar. And whereas like we opened up, we had a couple weeks, being open before we got hammered with this. So we were just trying to figure out who we were and what we were going to be, because, largely, if you guys know me, like I run with shit. There's a general idea, things get put on paper, we create it, and then a lot of it is like, I don't do pro formas. I really did try to crunch the numbers here and see what we needed, but I believe that none of that fucking matters until you get in the real world. People start interacting with you. So what we were trying to do wasn't really working. Again, it was a lot of in-person thing. We were trying to do a lot of small group coaching in the wellness space, doing ice baths, saunas, breath work, and trying to create a community around that. Still very much believe in that. But with this COVID thing happening, it just, again, shed light. It was like, we need to be online. We need to deliver as much coaching as we can online. And then do that in a manner that it's such high quality and so legit that when the opportunity presents itself for us to do coaching here again, small group coaching, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're just now pulling from our online content that we are already doing and plugging and playing, and we can just turn that. And again, from a business standpoint, payroll is significantly less because, we don't have to have the team in order to have the reach that we ultimately want to have impact. And it's a win-win, not only for us as a business because of that, but it's a win-win for our customers, because during our initial conversations of trying to sell them ultimately what we thought was going to be best for them, which was this small group training program, which consisted of 30 minutes of guided breath work into a fire and ice of ice baths and saunas. And we're going to do circuits, basically rounds of that. We were limited to a schedule again, an in-person schedule to make that happen. So, we were missing out on opportunity for people to experience that at their convenience, So now it's like, okay, what can we do for you to be in your pocket? You can do the breath work at home. You can come and do this ice bath and sauna anytime you want. We still think it's important that you focus on your breathing, but you don't need to be here. We would still love for you to be here and doing that with us, and that's why our space is still available. Get comfortable upstairs, lay out, to put your headphones in, turn on the audio, and, let us put you through some breathing, and then go down and do the sauna and the ice, So those changes definitely have been significant.
I think tapping into those resources that a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses and even like bigger businesses, when you tap into those resources of an online like structure of, you really expand the opportunity. And I think that's what small businesses need right now is opportunity. And, you know, with our business, how we restructured it was, you know, giving podcasters an opportunity to, you know, expand the reach, you
Yeah.
know, in ways that they may have not, you know, considered, you know, and I know that right now it's very important not to get comfortable in one way.
Yeah.
There is millions of ways to spin it and get your word out, get your message out. And I think, you know, with us here being, you know, in front of these cameras, that's a great example to show other, you know, show the world. I mean, we're moving in that direction, right? Where everything is kind of going online. Everything is, you know, kind of somewhat shut down still, you know, but it's not even about when things open up, right? It's about what happens if this happens again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if like any of you guys are out there, you know, like me, like I had a lot of reservations from trying to put anything out online, largely because I saw it as not necessarily adding value to the customer or the consumer. Again, this was maybe just a story that I told myself, but I saw it as like, oh, look at this online coach or this trainer trying to maximize revenue and being able to put out whatever bogus ass program that they were putting
Right.
out there to everybody. You know, you got so much more reach when you're online. So that's kind of the story I told myself. And it wasn't until this really hit that I was like, damn, this really is adding value to our customer, you know, and I do believe in the programs and the things that we're doing and not trying to make that decision on behalf of the consumer. And whereas like always believing that the best thing is for you to come in here and see me in person.
That's
You know, that's
really-
not
yeah,
the
that's
case.
really good.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like maybe, you know, I would still love for that, but you're shutting the door on those people that maybe are homebodies. Maybe, especially if we're talking about breath work stuff, like that's another thing that I think it was going to be a limiting factor is like some of the breathing stuff. A lot of what we do is slow breathing. Like we want to bring awareness back to that and educate people about the ill effects of over breathing. But with that being said, there is a time and place for consciously adding that stress and doing some of the fire breathing or the Wim Hof style breathing. And that's ugly. We're talking about video. Like if I started doing it right now, you are going to fast forward a little bit because, you know, you're making an ugly ass face. You might have some snot popping off and it's just not cute, right? So like if we're going to make breath work approachable, we need to be there with you in the privacy of your shower at times at your house so you can get the benefits of some of these protocols. So again, like I've changed that script and I've changed the story I've told myself to really double down and get back into doing this content, whether it's the podcast or just producing the videos for our weekly programs that we're launching. So
It's funny how the narrative we tell ourselves
Yeah.
that one way is the way. And I was in the same space, brother. I mean, I was, you know, and when everything hit, it was all about going to the client, going and physically shooting, physically being there and providing the best upfront service. And, you know, and as small business owners and entrepreneurs, you know, we like that. We like seeing that, you know, I mean, I can speak for myself is the gratification, the instant gratification of the appreciation of the art, my craft when I deliver a video or I'm on site or things like that. You know, there's different ways of obtaining that.
Yeah.
And I found out when everything started shutting down, you know, hey, people don't want to go out for photo shoots. You know, people don't really want to do video shoots right now. Everybody's home, you know, myself, I'm home. And, you know, and at the point, you know, if I did go out, you get, you know, you look like you're in a bad light. You know, you're out there contributing to the issue rather than, you know,
Yeah.
it really is just not sticking to one narrative. And I found that out and I'm all more happier for it.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, hats off to you because that's something that I've really appreciated for you is that you would show up and super professional, you know, like always come and deliver, you know what I mean? Like there was no question about it, you know? So it's like, I feel like for you and for myself and for anybody else that likes to do that in person because you can over deliver at that. You know, you can show people really what you're all about. Like that, just because you might take things online doesn't mean you necessarily need to cut corners. You just got to like put some stuff out there, but let it be to your standard while not letting your standard be something that holds you back from producing content. You know what I mean? I think like there's a middle ground, right? You know, like again, I jump in and I tend to try to overdo it, which sometimes slows me down from putting stuff out there. But you won't also have to just write a program last minute and try to take some bullshit ass photo, you know, or video. Like that's, you know, if that's not how you do things in person, you know, don't do it that way. You know, it's like,
yeah.
you know,
So when did the operation style change, you know, as far as like the way you complete tasks? I think for me, and I found that out too, is one thing was, okay, so I'm not in person. So I'm not, you know, I'm not I'm doing things differently. You know, and how is my processes, you know, when it comes to delivering, when it comes to working online, you know, am I organized? Am I structured? You know, and I think that's the biggest hurdle for entrepreneurs and that are going into a creative endeavor or online basis. You know, I'm speaking for myself and my own experiences that, okay, you know, you got to treat it as your business. You know, you got to go through systems and processes and lists and things like that. What makes it all the more enjoyable and all the more effective is when, you know, I did start putting it on a Monday.com or Trello or even a notepad, and you know, and I'm the type of person that is not organized. I'm very creative and artistic, but when it comes down to, you know, that's why I have my fiance, you know, she's the one that puts it all together, puts the mess together, you know. And when I started doing that myself is when I really started to see the difference, you know, and that transition was a bit easier when that started happening. And I guess that's the advice for, you know, creatives and people that are, you know, and they even have courses on that, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of creatives have that issue of, you know, separating creativity and productivity and drawing them together.
Yeah.
You know, and once I did that, things started falling in line.
That's what's up, man. So, so part of that was using some tools, like you said, Monday.com.
Monday.com.
Like what's that?
I mean, it's an online like workflow station. It helped me organize like what I need to, you know, physically see up front, but also, you know what, Jacob, the biggest thing was for me was I have a team under me, and the biggest thing was when I get news, it's hard for me to kind of convey that news to my teammates and my, you know, my employees, whatever it is, you know, because I would get the news and I would put it nowhere.
Yeah.
And I would almost expect for somebody to like, okay, well, I told you, you know, and you know, that's not how people work. That's not how people operate. And I had to use that platform, that tool the main thing for me was using that to write down all the notes that my team can instantly see. I'm on a phone call, you know, and people are, you know, seeing it in real time, and they don't have to, because the biggest thing is for them is, okay, where are we in this thing? You know, what do I got to do to help out? You know, and delegating instructions was very difficult because, you know, human.
Yeah. Ooh, I mean, that's the biggest struggle, I think, in all of this, right? Is like,
yeah.
Like I'm super interested in how people operate, you know, and I definitely am an observer when it comes to that. But I do struggle with delegation and
we all want to do it ourselves. That's my problem.
Right. I mean, it's not even about a control thing for me. It's more about, I don't know, an insecurity thing for me that, yeah, I mean, it's not that, like, cause I don't need to own the process. I don't need to own any of these things. It's just more, I think, again, I would say a security thing from the standpoint is like, I don't fully believe someone's going to deliver largely for me. You know what I mean? Like that I'm not worth working hard enough for, you know, like, of course that's tied up in all sorts of shit of abandonment or whatever. Like we don't need to, you know, fucking have a therapy. So let me get on the couch. You switch over here, bro. But it's like, you know, that's a lot of it is like, you know, like I don't know. It's like someone's going to let me down or they're going to bounce on me and like they're not going to see it through, right? And it's like sometimes I manifest that from those feelings, and that's the shit that happens all the time, you know? Like even though that's how you're feeling, like you do want to count on people, but ultimately you can't break your cycle. You can't break the way that you show up, and ultimately you don't give people the chance to deliver. And and you don't really learn the skills to delegate and work with the different personalities, you know what I mean? So that's been something, you know, I've been working on, you know, but I think on the other side of that coin is like, you got a lot on your fucking plate, man. So like, you need to also find the personalities that work with you and not spend all your time on trying to work on every single weakness and bring it up as a significant strength when you have these other strengths, you know what I mean? So there's people out there that do get you,
definitely,
and that are going to turn around quickly with content or with whatever you're asking of them, because you guys communicate in a way that meshes.
That's
you know
fluid,
what I mean?
yeah.
So don't feel like you got to fix everything about you communication wise, you know what I mean? And I think that's important.
Definitely. And shout out to my team, you know, and we you know, I'm the type of person that, and I'm sure you understand that I'll do it all myself. And, you know, and it took my fiance, it took my team telling me, you know, hey, you got help back here, you know, you got help. Let us take some of that from you. And the plate thing is, you know, being leaders, you know, that we are, we want to do it all ourselves. You know, we want to be able to kind of see it through and not put so much on someone else's plate. And that was for me. And I was always saying, you know, I'm the one with the idea, so I'm the one to put the most work, you know. And when I found out that that's not how people work, you know, and when you have a football team, a basketball team, yeah, you got your star, but we got all these other people too that, you know, contribute to this whole process, this whole game, this whole business, whatever it is that you're working on. And for a long time, it was difficult for me to see that.
Yeah.
And when I did start seeing it is really when things started turnkeying, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy that I did. And the advice is for anybody that is in that space is to let some of it go.
Yeah.
Let some of it go, and you'll see the difference. And then that, you know, you can, whether you like the way it is, you can tweak it. You know, you can adjust it and fit it to the way you like it.
Yeah.
And the way you work and the way people work. And it helps with smaller teams, you know, my process that we have now, but it definitely for a larger organization, you know, it's all about communication. And that's where we are with the world, right?
Right.
Communication.
Yeah, man. And you know, like another example of like areas that I need to do better in communicating. Like one thing that why I try to take things on myself and just do it myself is I feel like my goal here is like, I'm going to fucking put in this work. I'm not going to take any goddamn days off or fucking ever, you know what I mean? And I'm going to just grind. And like in my mind, what I'm saying is like, okay, this is a way for me not to have like an uncomfortable conversation. I'm just going to show up and do this work. And I'm hoping that people are watching and they're like, oh fuck,
want to help you
I want that work ethic. I want to be able to do that. That's what I need to do. But in reality, what they're seeing is like, fuck that. I don't want any part of that life. You know what I mean? And it's like
they see the ugly. You know?
Exactly. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I want it to be inspiring, but in reality, they're like, nah, I want no part of that shit.
Is that what it takes to be a business owner? You got to be run down all the time.
And
that's
I mean,
what it looks like
for sure. And like the thing is like, I'm aware of it, right? You know, I'm aware of all this shit. And like, so when I talk to people about it, I'm telling them like, don't be like me, man. Like hang on to your days off. But I don't, you know, that's advice that I can give, but I can't really do on my own. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying, I just don't have that. I don't know. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I want it and I can't do it. So there's this like cognitive dissonance, or there's this difference between what I'm telling people to do versus what I'm doing. And then when they do it, there's little resentment. You know what I mean? Because I haven't figured out how to do that. I can't turn it off. And again, it's like, rather than beat myself up about it, like I'm trying to just embrace that quality of mine, because it can be a really good quality.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I
being
need to
a
lose the
workhorse.
resentment for sure. I need to not have those feelings and just acknowledge like these are choices that I'm making, and be stoked that I have that quality, that I never turn it off. Sure, there's got to be some safe balance, but I can come up with a fucking business idea any day, all day, and I do, because I don't know how to turn it off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
Same.
there's positives that come of it, but there just has to be balance. And I think for me, maybe it's not even balance. For me, it's just getting clear on what I'm telling, because I do truly believe and I want the squad to enjoy days off and not be fully submerged unless
It's grind time.
I mean, yeah, exactly. There's stages for sure. And
Like at the beginning of all
conversations
this.
about that, dude. I've been having conversations about that, and that like this is not the time for days off.
Yeah.
You know, like this is the time for getting clear and taking care of yourself for sure. But if your own, like, we're talking about like resiliency, right? Like it's a big topic of conversation here at the Space Bar. You know, I think that's what the ice bath teaches. A lot of, you know, is resiliency of like being able to get in there. The point through resilience is that you don't have one modality to take care of yourself. If you're one modality you might have your preferences, but if your one thing is to run away and be in isolation to take care of your mental health, fragile. You know what I mean? Because there's times when that's not a fucking option. You know what I mean? So you need to figure out how you can get by, show up for your squad, show up for yourself while still putting in the work. You know what I mean? And it's like, this is all a spectrum, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to force anything upon anybody. It's a spectrum. I'm a little further on the other end of the spectrum where like my self-care, it can be as simple as a walk in the morning, 5 minutes of just a woo-saw, and maybe that's not enough to really feel in a good headspace, but it's enough for me to show up for the customer with a smile on my face, right?
Definitely.
Now there's levels to this, right? Like as people get closer and closer and closer to you, you need more and more time away to show up for them in the way that you really want. So like how that happens for me, 5 minutes might be good for me to show up and give great customer service. It's not enough time for me to show up for the squad. It's sure as fuck not enough time for me to show up for my girlfriend, Laura. You know what I mean? Like, because that takes a lot of work, because those are the people that are closest to you. And that is when your shadows and your demons come out a little bit more, right? Because you have, you know, what's close to you, they experience that, if that makes sense. So
it does.
There's times when you just need to look at it, know what you need to get done, and then have these different days or these different practices to get you there, you know,
to push you along throughout the day. And you know, and I didn't know how beneficial walking was, you know, and I'm recently, like, I'm losing weight and I'm feeling better about myself, you know, and about 20 pounds down.
Ooh, congrats, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And I didn't realize the compound effect of walking every morning, you know, and how, you know, and everything else too. You know, I was watching an interview, a podcast about, it was Joey Diaz talking about Joe Rogan, about clocking in.
Who's this Joe? Never heard of him.
Oh yeah, he's a bald-headed guy.
Jose Rogan.
You know, you might have heard of him, but you know, and the compound effect of like clocking in and clocking out every single day, the putting in the work, you know, in the way I'm relating this is walking every morning or taking time for myself that I didn't know. I mean, I knew. Sometimes you know, and you just don't do it, but. You know, walking every morning has been so beneficial for my mental clarity and obviously my physical body, and you know, and you kind of need all that for business. Mm-hmm. You know, you kind of need be in a good mindset, you know, mental health, and you need, you know, your physical body, in your spiritual body, and all these things play a factor in your success of your business. Yeah. I mean, you're just like you know, your physical body is the reflection of you internally, you know, and I think that It's the same way for a business.
Yeah.
You know, your physical, your mental, your spiritual, emotional, whatever it is a representation of your business.
Yeah.
If you are good within, your business is good, you know, and the compound effect of putting in the work and kind of balancing it out. And it's so easy to say, you know, and that's the hard part that people don't, you know, myself included, I did not grasp, is that things can wait. You know, as much as, you know, hustle grind, you know, and I'm a big believer of that, and I did that for many, many years. And, you know, but when I started taking the wusa, the walk, you know, the eating better, the drinking more water, but, you know, taking care of myself, and we're here in the space of that, you know, things started really coming together. And
absolutely, man.
Reminders are so important, that, you know, because for a while when we're getting this Vision X podcast program up, I was falling into that same kind of pattern of like, fuck everything. Just, you know, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this, you know, and cannabis has helped with that. There we go. But, you know, but it has, you know, a reminder of kind of, you got to take time for yourself or you're going to fall back into old habits.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a big part of the conversation of the Barcode Collective. It's, you know, it's mind, body, business, and relationships, you know, and looking at these different pillars. And once you start acknowledging that, like, the principles and the foundation to be successful in one is the exact same across the board.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to have ultimate success in all of them at any given time. You know, there's going to be sometimes one's thriving, one's not, but it's just bringing awareness to it, and then you taking control and figuring out which bucket or which pillar you need to focus on at any given time, and recognize the stages of life, stages of your business, the stages of a project, and where those are going to flow. You know what I mean?
It's like a car. When you have one tire that is almost flat, you know, and you're still driving, you're still coasting. Eventually that one tire is going to pop.
Yeah.
And your whole car stops. Yeah. You know, and the visual representation of filling the bucket of the pillars, you know, and filling it with water, you know, and when something's really low, you got to pay attention to that pain point of, you know, start filling that up more, you know, if your health is an issue, you know, start paying attention to that more. And then I guarantee you that, you know, things start happening in your other aspects of your life, your relationships, you know, and you just said it, you know, it is all together. It all works together.
Yeah. So with those being the pillars, mind, body, business, and relationships, would you say is your area of opportunity right now to focus in on and maybe fill it up a bit?
Relationships. I'm a homebody. I really am, you know, and I'm a kind of a guy that keeps to myself, you know, and I have these relationships, and, you know, I have, you know, I'm not a overly outgoing guy, and I'm not a overly, you know, isolated homebody type. I think right now for me is like dipping back into those relationships and starting to see the opportunity again, and not just to like for my own opportunity, you know, maybe I could be there for somebody else that needs me right now. Yeah. You know, and that's where I think my focus right now is the relationships. And of course, everything else right now has just been kind of like, you got it on your checklist, do it. Yeah. You know, but you're definitely right on the paying attention to one certain pillar.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's dope, man. Yeah, I keep forgetting we're on video, man.
Yeah, it's right here.
I would love to say that I'm sponsored by Fermench, but nah, they're just one of my favorite vendors. So we both sipping on this kombucha right now. Shout out to Fermench. Beautiful. They're bottling their stuff. This is how they adapted during COVID. You know, they were largely on tap at a lot of different coffee shops. Obviously, their coffee shops closed up that they were servicing. So boom, little bottled deliciousness.
Well, shout out to them. It is really good.
So you might just need to do a clip of how dope you are at video editing and send this to Fermench, and then let's fuck around with a free keg, huh? Go. Huh, Chad? What do you say, Chad? Hook me up.
Oh yeah, there we go.
But do me a solid and tell people where they can learn more about the Vision X podcast production. Yes. Is that what you call it? Okay,
podcast
cool.
Production.
And all your services. Sure. And hit them up.
Sure. So you can find well, first me personally at Nuncio's Vision, Nuncios Vision, and since I'm the one editing this, right here, Vision X podcast is coming soon. We're in soft launch time right now. You can find all the information you need at visionxpodcast.com
Dope.
or on our Instagram at visionxpodcastpro for production. Yeah, we're slowly unraveling this, and we're kind of doing these tests out there. And if you're interested in seeing where video can take your podcast, definitely hit up the link and reach out. We're here for you.
Dope. And yeah, since it's been a while since you guys have heard and seen me, a few things have changed. One thing,
Sweet mullet.
Sweet mullet. This is fresh. I mean, for one, my hair growth is like, it's amazing, largely because I'm doing things like I'm jumping in this red light therapy on the other side of this wall. Great for the college and production. Great for that hair, skin, and nails. I'm 73 years old, and I'm looking pretty damn flawless. But anyways,
I would say
just a quick shout out to some of the services that we have here at the Space Bar. But I did also want to bring some awareness to the Barcode Collective app. I don't know if y'all be able to see this, but boom, in the iTunes Google Store, Barcode Collective. Download that. That's a message I just sent out to the squad. But basically what this app is, it's not only an activity tracker that you can track your steps for those morning walks. It's a messaging platform for our coaches and myself, as well as a rewards program for the Fit Bar. So really all you got to do is download the app, start tracking your steps. If you're averaging 10K steps a day, we're going to just hook you up with $5 to the Fit Bar every single month. So we're trying to bring our own currency to the game and not only reward people for coming and spending money with us. We want to reward you for your healthy choices out there. So download that app, start stepping. And then in addition to it, as we talked about a lot of the virtual content that we are fucking putting out there.
Yeah, definitely.
We're also going to be sending out little messages and alerts for that every single week as we produce that for you guys. And that is all completely free. So like what you can expect from that is going to be 3 workouts, put together from my guy, Anthony. He's our head strength and conditioning coach over here at the Space Bar. And then you're going to get 1 yoga session from Jasmine, as well as some nutrition advice and guidance from Kira, our functional nutritionist here at the Space Bar, Barcode Collective, and the Fit Bar. So those guys will be available to you and putting that content out there. And if you have any additional questions and you want a little bit more guidance, you can opt in for $19.99 a month, and we'll put you in a private group, and then you can directly communicate with any one of us. I'll be putting some breathwork protocols out there for that program as well. So really it's a healthy lifestyle program that kind of touches bases on everything. As we get better at doing some of this stuff, maybe we'll drop in some mindset stuff too. But we are really trying to be there for you guys, whether it's within our 4 walls of the gyms, the Fit Bar, or the Space Bar, or in the walls that are your living room or a park or wherever you can get it in. No more the excuses of having to go to a place. We want to be there for you guys. So check that out. If you're in Pasadena, West Seattle, Sunset Beach, Sierra Madre, Renton, go and check out any one of the businesses. Tell them the Barcode Collective sent you there, and they probably won't give you anything, but maybe a Air 5. But anyways, let us know that you saw this. Let us know what you guys think. Really appreciate any engagement, any shout outs, any reviews are always welcomed. But until then, you can find me at Cub_Saldana on Instagram, Spacebar Wellness on Instagram, Fitbar Cafe on Instagram. And until next time, my friend, thank you for pulling me out of the cave and getting me back out here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me, and stay safe, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. See you.